back to Let's Talk. I'm Brett, and
I'm Trenton. How y'all doing?
It's good to be back on here with you guys. It's been a little while since it's only been about a week or a couple of weeks since we've done a video. If you're checking us out for the first time, make sure and hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and if you want all the notifications for the new shows that we put out, make sure you hit that bell over on the right-hand side there, and you'll get all the notifications for all the new shows that we do. And you want to go ahead and do our other shows while we're doing it, or you want to wait till the end? What do you think?
Well, they're already here, so
they're already listening. So
if you're listening to this show, he just said subscribe to this show. But we've also got Next Level Freedom Church will be launching September 30th, 2018 at 10 a.m. here in Jackson, Missouri. We have a YouTube page. I want y'all to go check it out. We got I got some cool interviews coming up that I haven't done yet, but they will be on there. Right now there's some with Brett, one with Pastor Stafford Moore out of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It gives people a chance to talk about their testimony, because we didn't all start as pastors. We started as people, just like you, which we still are people, but we started out like everybody else is what I'm trying to say. The only difference is the people that have said yes are actually doing what God has called them to do. So God called, they said yes. But check out Next Level Freedom Church, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out the Bible study. Right now we're going through the book of Mark. I'm getting ready to put a new one up probably closer to the end of this week. There'll be a new Bible study up for that, so check that out. Yeah, we're glad you're here.
And as for me, Give 'em Truth Ministries got a YouTube page if you want to head over there and check it out. Try to have a video up. It really seems to be about every 2 weeks. But I have a new video up. We just do a little Bible study. Sometimes we have some interviews. And like I said, the whole point of that really is to just give people just a little bit of truth every time they click onto that. Just to maybe pull a little something from it to help you through life, or to help you through that day, or whatever it may be. Or maybe even to just offer a different look on something that maybe you see it in a different way or something. So just maybe, iron sharpens iron a little bit, talk about different things. So you can make sure you hit like and subscribe on that, and that's Give 'em Truth Ministry.
So last week remember we continued last week talking about our newest topic, Come As You Are. Because God can use you right where you're at in life. He doesn't have to wait till you get all these degrees and whatever else you think you need before you surrender to God. And please, let me just say this, and this is in our Growth Track book. I've been typing up so much for the church, so it kind of reminded me of this. Don't wait until your life is perfect to come to Jesus, because you will never come. Your life is never going to be perfect. It's kind of like when you're thinking about having a kid. Don't wait until everything's in order, because guess what? It's never going to be in order. You just kind of got to take it, have the kid, and then it just kind of works into your budget. So if you're always waiting on the perfect time in life, you're never going to do anything, because you're never going to reach that point. So just get out there and do it. So it's kind of the point of this series. We've been talking a little bit about David and coming as he was. Remember, we talked about the first week that he was just about 15. He got anointed to be king. Last week we started talking, or not last week, last show we started talking about him approaching Goliath, and the preparation and the critics and the things that are going to come along when you try to say yes to what God is telling you to do. And today we're going to actually get to that part that y'all were waiting on us to get to last time, which is when he gets to kill the giant. But come as you are, which is kind of the point. And it just kind of, like we said, ties right into the first series we did, which was it's time to move. So it's time to do something. And we're not waiting on it to be perfect. Come as you are, so God can use you. So, good.
You ready to jump into this?
Ready to jump in.
Well, we left off with verse 40, right, last time. And so let's go ahead and let's read verse 40 again, so everybody knows right where we're at. And it says, Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand as he approached the Philistine. And the Philistines moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth. Is that Rudy or Ruddy? Ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the fields. Then David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, who whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, and that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand.
Awesome.
You want to stop there?
A lot right there.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch in there.
Let's start right there. You kind of tied it off with what we talked about last week, which if you remember, or last time I should say, last time we talked about David, and the reason he took the 5 smooth stones, it wasn't because he thought he was going to miss. He wasn't expecting to miss. He knew he was going to do what he was there to do. But it was because there was Goliath, but then Goliath had 4 brothers. So David was automatically assuming that I kill him, there's a good chance his brothers are coming after me, so I'm going to have 4 more stones ready to go. So David took that major approach of faith when he started approaching this giant. So that's just something I wanted to point out from last time as we begin talking about today.
Well, another thing we talked about last time was how his brothers were making fun of him, and you know, if you come down here and all that stuff. But as I was reading through this or whatever, and you listen to the Philistine here, or to, I guess it's Goliath talking, and says, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his God. So he's looking at David's appearance. He's got a slingshot in his hand, and he just looks like basically a nobody. So
ruddy and handsome.
So here's to him he looks he's ruddy and handsome in appearance, and he's just thinking, you're coming to me with this. This is what you're bringing me. Doesn't it look like a warrior? He doesn't look like he has done a whole lot of anything. That's. As I was sitting there reading that, the idea that I got was that we don't always look like we can do anything. But you can accomplish so much. Just look at what David accomplished. He came before this huge giant looking like nothing to most of the people that were out there around him, thinking, this kid's going to get us all killed. And David is like, no, I'm going before this in the name of God, and I'm going to go make this happen, and this is what's going to happen. And well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but basically we just read that. It says, I'm going to kill you today, and the birds are going to feast on you. You just wait and see what happens. He went out into this with the attitude that, no, this is the God I serve, and this is what's going to happen. And if we would have that attitude whenever we jump, I don't want to say jump into something, but when we go into something, have the attitude that we know God is going to be glorified through it, think of what we could accomplish.
And verse 44 stands out to me because that is when the Philistines started threatening him. That's when the threats started flying. Besides the fact he was making fun of him at first, which a lot of people can handle being made fun of. Some people can't, and that's where they give up. But at the point when the threats started flying, I think a lot of us would have given up. A lot of people would have. I ain't going to say everybody, because obviously David didn't. And there are those people out there that have that determination, especially when they know who they're fighting for. And I think we mentioned it briefly last time. If you know the God you're fighting for, and you are determined, and you know what's going to happen, that's not arrogance. That's just knowing the God you serve. So, and we've seen God deliver bigger, so hey, he's just another lion or bear to me, is what David's thinking. I'm just going to take him out. But when the Philistines started throwing the flesh, he said, come to me, and I will feed your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And then instead of David saying, oh, maybe I should have rethought this, David just basically threw it right back at him.
Nobody
He's like, wait a minute, dude. You're coming to me with a sword, a javelin, a spear. I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord. It's a done deal as far as I'm concerned, is what he's getting at. I'm not scared of you, dude. Let's just do this. So he's like, today, after today, I'm going to give all your buddies to the birds of the flesh. I'm going to give you, I'm going to cut off your head with your own sword. That's important to point out because he does do that. So David pretty much tells what's going to happen. And then he does it eventually, but we haven't gotten there yet. But David came full force. He knew the God he was serving. He knew of his abilities. And not only that, David knew that this was going to be a testimony that God used to let people know that there is truly a God in Israel. And remember, it was saying Goliath cursed him by his gods, but really that's just a bunch of names, a bunch of little statues they got sitting around their camp. But David knew who he served, and he knew it was the living God. So David, I've heard preachers say this. You know, a lot of people were saying, man, he's so big. But David's like, he's so big I can't miss. So, I mean, come on. I'm going to take this guy out. This is going to be, you know, it's not going to be me. It's going to be the Lord's victory. And it's going to be easy because I know the God I serve. So, so at that point, and if you notice verse 47, David said this whole assembly is going to know that God doesn't save by the sword. God saves because of who he is. He's God. The battle is his. And he will give you into my hand. And I thought that determination coming out was a big thing. Especially when we're facing, we talked about giants, or we're facing calls, or things that God's told us to do, and we do have the persecutors. We talked a little about last time about the little giant being his brother, which was a relative that was telling him, you know, what are you doing with shepherd boy? He was making fun of him. In the same aspect, the big giant here, Goliath, is like making fun of him and then threatening him. So David's still coming. He's coming full force.
And you know, too, you look at it, anybody would have been probably scared at that point. The big, tall giant, right? And you know, it's not that David wasn't scared, because, and maybe he wasn't, you know, but I think there may have still been some fear there, but he had so much faith in the God that he served that he knew the outcome. So he went boldly to do this. But so I guess the idea behind that is just because you feel fear doesn't mean that you can't accomplish something great. I mean, I tell you, the first time I got up to preach and give a message, like we've talked about it on one of your other shows, I was terrified, and it wasn't a very good message. But what it did was it helped me pursue it to the next time and do better next time and next time and next time. So don't not do something because of fear, because if David would have not done this because of fear, the story would have been totally different.
Over last week.
there would have been no story whatsoever. You know, he may have walked out there, been so full of fear and not trusted in the Lord, he got killed, and we'd have had no King David and none of that. You know, so story could have went a totally different direction if he would have allowed fear to overcome his faith that he had in God. So something to think about.
He had confidence regardless, because everybody else was in their tents. We talked about that a little last time. They were in the tents hiding. He was the one that wasn't afraid to do something about it. So whether he had fear or whether not, either way. And once again, the spunk was definitely there. Like I said, the researchers believe that he was probably around 17 at this point. So the spunk's there. When you're 17, you're ready to do a lot of stuff that maybe you can't do, but you know you can in your minds. And that's why you get stuff accomplished. But anyway, moving on there. Verse 48. So when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly. He was coming, y'all. He knew he was coming toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face.
You never seen it coming.
Dude, this reminded me of some, I mean, this is totally like out there. Some of you wrestling fans will know what I'm talking about. But you like, I don't even have to use names, but there was some stuff like a few years ago, I don't even know when it was now, when Goldberg took on, what was that guy he was fighting? That we had some guys over.
Brock Lesnar?
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
The match lasted like 30 seconds. It was over. And a lot of people were disappointed there wasn't a battle there. And I'm just using that to say something natural that you can relate to. So, can you imagine maybe the Philistines even more than the Israelites at this point thinking, that was quick. Turning, telling, running, which we're going to find here in a second. So, let me go ahead and finish reading before I get too far off.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
You done put a thought in my head. You know in the movies whenever you see two people smack talking, right? And one of them knows he's going to win. And I can just see this happening right now. David's running up there with a slingshot and just launches it and smacks Goliath in the head, right? Goliath falls down, and all of a sudden there's this like eerily dead silence because everybody's in shock. And I can just see the whole Israel camp go, yeah! You know, just like in the movies.
And then the Philistines, guys, I think we maybe need to get out of here.
Time to go.
It's time to leave.
Philistines are taking 3 steps back, real slow, making sure no one's watching
them. So, verse 50 says, so David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone. He came with what he had that day. It wasn't nothing special, a sling and a stone, which is what he knew. Okay, so he came with what he had, like we were talking about, come just as you are, come as you are. And struck the Philistine and killed him, and there was no sword in the hand of David. So then David ran over, stood over the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, it just says they fled. But like we just talked about, can you imagine? I'm sure there was dead silence. Maybe they were all sitting there stunned and shocked after the stone rolled in his head and he fell. But then when David actually ran over, took his sword, killed him with his own sword, cut off his head, then they're like, uh-oh.
The sword was probably bigger than David to begin
He couldn't handle Saul's equipment, so David.
Can you imagine picking up this sword like, and slinging it down on his head to, make sure he's dead,
That's one thing I was going to say, and you just mentioned it. When you're going after these giants in your life, don't just assume they're dead because you attacked them once. Make sure they're dead. Finish them off, because otherwise they're coming back for you. So
you know what? They might have brothers too, so keep that in mind.
Yup. So
your problems may not just be one single problem; they may have some coming up right behind it. So.
And that doesn't even have to be a negative thing. When God calls you to do something, in this case it was fight a giant that was a Philistine, have the courage to follow through, to finish the job, what He told you to do. Don't start it, get halfway through it, realize, oh, well, this is kind of harder than I thought, guys, and just throw in the towel and give up. Actually see the job through. If God's calling you to do something, and that's what we stress, if God is calling you to do something, make sure it's God, then make sure you go ahead and follow through. Finish the job. Do it. Do what He's telling you to do. Because there is someone, maybe lots of someones out there that needs what you have, and only you can. You're the only one that's like you. You're the only one with your gifts. You're the only person that will be able to relate to that person. So especially I'm talking to Christians here. We may have non-believers watching as well, but if you're a Christian out there and God's telling you to do something, you may be the only Jesus some people see. So make sure you're doing it. So I just threw that in there, but that was kind of off. But so David won. That's what y'all was waiting for last week. You was waiting for him to kill the big giant. But we did get in some good discussions last week about having the courage to do it.
I wonder why nobody has. There's David and Goliath movies out there, but they're terrible. This would make such an awesome, if done right, dare I say, a Hollywood make of this story, because the story's got everything you need in it. It would just make such an awesome story. You see all these filthy, terrible movies out there, and this, out of the Bible would make such a really cool movie. I just really wonder why somebody hasn't really grabbed a hold of it and done it. I mean, they ruin. It's got to be done right and not ruined like Noah was. Remember how bad Noah was, So I don't know. I was sitting here thinking about how great of a movie that would make. But yeah, let's go ahead and finish up those scriptures there.
All right. Well, and the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Shamraim as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistines and brought it to Jerusalem and put his armor in his tent. Oh, the head of the Philistine. I'm sorry, he's talking about Goliath there. And he put the armor in his tent. So, as soon as Saul saw David go out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, as your soul lives, O king, I don't know. And the king said, inquire whose son the boy is. And as soon as David returned from the striking down of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. He's holding Goliath's head up. And Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? And David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. So, wow, a lot of stuff was actually right there. I mean, a lot of us, we get to the part where he kills the giant, we quit reading the story. But there was a lot of good stuff that just kind of happened right there. I mean, they didn't know where did this guy come from? And it's the same way with those of you out there, whatever your calling is. And I'm not even talking about getting famous. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is people, if you follow through with what God has told you to do, or you follow through with that calling, people are going to notice you. And they're going to be like, whose kid is this? And you may not even have to mention a physical father here. My daddy. God's my daddy. And that's where I'm coming. But they didn't know who is this guy. So he caught their eye. They began to notice. So guess what that did right there? That opened the door for David to once again walk out his destiny, but how you can relate it to you is it opens the door for you to communicate what God has done for you. Who are you, young man? And they found out real quick. Whose son is this? And David told him. So what you got?
Well, like I said, there's a bunch in there, but let me back up here. Lost my spot. You know, I like how they didn't waste no time. You know, like you were talking about, fulfill it all the way through. You know, don't stop halfway. David, he went up and lopped his head off, but he didn't stop there. You know, he's like, well, I'm gonna take his armor. You know, so Israel's out there plundering the Philistine camp, and David's back there rolling this giant over, taking his armor off and everything. And you know, it just made me think about, wow, he really seen this thing through. You know, he knew what he had to do, and he's like, well, I'm taking my prize now. This is my trophy. This is my prize. And it all I keep going back to this, man, because it's so relevant. It all started with his faith in God. His faith in God, up until that point, he had been building his faith. But think about the faith booster this was. I killed a giant where all of you guys were back there in your tents, scared to death. I was out on the front line because I chose, you know, to follow after, you know, the God of Israel, and knew that he was going to protect me. You know, so think about, and I'm not saying that he was like this prideful state. We all know that he probably went through prideful times, but think of the faith booster, the morale booster that gave him, but it also probably gave the army at that time. It was probably this huge turnaround in the war and everything that they had been going through. So see your thing, you know, the problem through, see your destiny through. Just keep pursuing it, whatever it is. It's easy to give up. If you want to go the easy way, then give up. Because it's easy to give up, but you're not going to become anything. You're not going to build your faith in God. If you want to see this thing through, then yeah, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. That's what I always heard growing up. Nothing worth doing is ever really easy. So you have to pursue it. You have to keep pursuing. And yeah, we're at the end of this chapter, and don't know if we're going into the next chapter or not. Maybe we are, but
not today.
But
there's more to David's story. We're not going to stop here.
Yeah.
So,
but I just didn't know if we were going to bounce back and forth with him. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, you know, keep trying to build your faith, and don't shy away from situations that come your way, because they're going to be hard. Because life is just going to get harder as you know. If you guys are younger, and as you get older, it's going to get harder. And if you're older, and you're going to get even more older, you're just going to face new challenges. So you might as well just start facing them head on, and you'll come out with a lot better results if you keep facing your problems. So anyway,
the world's filled with people who gave up on their dreams. So, and I say that in the sense that there's always somebody who ends up listening to the negative critics and say, well, I can't really do this. Because I believe that God gives each of us a divine purpose that only we can accomplish. And so that means everybody, even those of you out there listening to this video right now, no matter who you are, God has given you a purpose in this life. But so many people miss their purpose because they give up too soon. And the reason I say that is because you hear about a lot of people like Steve Jobs and these people that have changed the world with their tech and things like that. You know, Bill Gates, all of that. But the ones you don't hear about are the ones that gave up. So, who all in history could have been another Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, since I've already used their example, but didn't get there because they gave up before God was able to do something? And I'm not even talking about you have to be a billionaire, a millionaire, or any of that. But there is a whole group of people that you influence every day whose lives are not going to be changed.
Well, you know,
unless you're there,
you're writing your own history. You know, you were talking about being famous or whatever. You know, you read history books and things like that. You read about all the things that happen in history, but you're making your own history every day, and it's up to you. You know, it's up to you really what you want your life to, how you want your life to end up, where you want your life to be in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. If you give up now, I can guarantee you in 15 years you'll still be giving up on stuff.
You'll be in the same place.
So I mean, you'll never make any changes in your life. I mean, I gave up on some things when I was younger and wish that I wouldn't have gave up on them. You know, so but here I am trying to change my situations that, you know, in different things, and try to make myself more available to my family. You know, so I can have more home time. You know, your priorities change and things. Your life changes. But you can't give up on the things you want to pursue, because if you just give up and say forget it, you're going to stay right where you're at for the rest of your life. And if you're not happy now, 20 years from now you're going to be real unhappy.
Yeah.
So just think about that.
And we've said that over and over. I don't know if on this show or other shows, because we've recorded so many in the last 4 or 5 months. But you are where you're at right now because of every decision you've made up until this point. Whether those decisions were good or bad. So some of us have made bad choices and ended up, and God can get you back. It just takes a long detour sometimes to get there. But, made some bad choices. And we all do. I mean, it's part of life. We have to make those decisions. But then there's some of you out there that have made some really good choices, and you're looking at where you're at right now saying, you know what, I'm glad I decided to do that, because if I hadn't, fill in the blank, this wouldn't have happened. So this is really about encouragement. Come as you are, let God use you with the tools you have, in this case a slingshot and some stones, and He will use you to change the world. May not be famous, but you're changing the world. People will know you. There's always people around you that you're influencing. So, and that's what we're about, changing the world. Reaching others where they're at. Touching them exactly where they're at. Because there's people out there that need the message of hope. That need the message David was trying to send across here. That I'm going to prove to you this day that the God of Israel is the true God. And a lot of people don't know that. They've been told that, hey, there's so many different ways you can get to heaven, so, just pick one. And that's just not the case. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And you get people out there talking about how there's so many different roads to get to heaven, but the problem with that theory is they don't know those religions very well, because none of them line up. None of them agree.
We're not too much off course, but there's a lot of different Jesuses out there. And if you don't understand what I mean is a lot of people make Jesus who they want Jesus to be, especially within the New Age. And you hear a lot of people say, oh, I believe in Jesus, I trust in Jesus, but then they have this very distorted view of how they're supposed to live their life. And the things that are actually what they believe are nowhere found in Scripture, because they have made Jesus, this New Age Jesus, is totally different than what we believe. He's not the Son of God. He's not the King of the universe. He's this other Jesus that basically says, yeah, you can do whatever you want, do whatever makes you feel happy. We have to be careful with what we follow, because when you're looking at something and you're looking to follow something, there's always a counterfeit to the good. Satan's always got a counterfeit to the good. So, keep that in mind as well. Anyway.
And before some of you send us nasty emails misquoting him, the Jesus he was just talking about wasn't the true Jesus. He was talking about what the world makes out to be Jesus.
Well, I'm hoping by now they know which Jesus we trust.
But just in case that wasn't clear.
The one in the Bible, the one that died on the cross, the one that rose for us.
The Son of God.
The Son of God, Jesus
God Himself
Christ.
wrapped in flesh. That Jesus. The one that did give you rules and did give you laws and does want you to obey those laws. It's not do whatever you want. It's here's how it happens. If you want to reach prosperity, and that can be spiritually, financially, whatever. I'm not even talking about money. When you say that word prosperity, so many people start taking so many different things to mind. What I'm talking about is you spiritually prospering. And God can bless you with money too. There's nothing wrong with money. But Jesus will give you, and it's not just Jesus, the Old Testament, all that, guide you with the things you need to do.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Something I don't know if I missed. That's pretty well right on, I think. But
the thing is, you have to be seeking His righteousness.
Yeah.
That's the key there.
Seek the kingdom, and that's what we need to do. Is when we're seeking Jesus, we are seeking the kingdom, because that's our ultimate destination. That's surely where I want to go. So. Just whatever it is in your life, just keep pursuing it. Keep praying about it. Keep seeking God over it, and you'll get there. How long, Trenton, has it? When you received the vision, how many years ago to where you are today? Just now getting there. But it's a process. It's mistakes. It's not making mistakes. It's making the right choices. It's a process of things to get you to where you're going to go, to where God wants you to go. And along the way, God is going to teach you the things that you're going to need for when you get there. That's why it's a process. Because if He just says, here you go, Trenton. I expect a church by next Sunday morning, and here's the things that I want. He'd have never done it. You know, unless God would have said, here it is. But that's not necessarily how God works all the time. It's the same way with me, you know, with the things that I wanted and have gotten in my life. It's been a process to get me to focus more on God and learning how to study and learning how to pray and learning how to seek these things, you know. So don't give up because the process is long, because sometimes it is long. So
key word, it is a process though. You've got to be pursuing it. It doesn't just kind of get handed to you. Well, you got to be pursuing.
David, I don't think David walked into that battle that day with
expectation.
Well, I think that he walked into that battle that day with a series of things happening in his life that built up his faith, knowing that the God he believes in is real. You know, is the real God. He didn't just walk in there saying, well, I hope he's real. I'm going to throw this rock at this guy and it's going to work. You know, he had enough faith. He went through a process of things, even though he was young. But he'd probably been trained from the moment he was born on who the God of Israel was.
The Bible says the righteous fall 7 times and get back up. So the key is get back up. And what I want to stress on the process though is it takes time. I mean, God may have given you a vision. And it doesn't, I mean, some rare cases you may something, but I guarantee there was a process before that person came on the scene. Somehow God was preparing them. But if you're not preparing yourself for the moment that vision comes to pass, then guess what? That God's going to be ready to hand you the vision, and since you haven't been preparing, now you're going to be like, what do I do with this now? And you're going to be trying to rush to get all these things done. So during your waiting period, that's the time for you to be growing in what God is telling you to do. So be doing, if you know the vision God's given for your life, I guess is what I'm getting at, then be preparing yourself for that vision while you're waiting on it to come to pass. Because otherwise, if you're just sitting around expecting it to come to pass, it may never come to pass because you've never been in the spot you're supposed to be in. So yeah, be pursuing God. It is a process. So hit us up on the email, wait.letstalk@gmail.com. We want to hear what you want us to talk about. Go ahead and hit us up. We want to talk about topics that are relevant to those of you watching that are wanting us to talk about. Maybe you've got questions about the scripture, things you want to understand. Maybe we don't understand, but we're willing to dig it out for you and figure it out with you. So hit us up at the email that's on your screen right now, wait.letstalk@gmail.com. Subscribe to this page, subscribe to Next Level Freedom Church, subscribe to
Give 'em Truth Ministries.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it for today, guys. I mean, anything else you want to add?
Oh, man, I just want to tell y'all thanks for checking out the show. It means a lot to us.
Share this with your friends, tag it on Facebook, share the link. You know, help us get the word out. We're just trying to be real and talk to people. Let's talk. So,
but y'all gotta talk back sometimes too. So
yeah, we want to hear from you. That's why we put the email on the screen.
So if you're watching right now, just maybe add a little, hey, saw your show. Just let us know you're watching. Appreciate it. Even though we know you're watching, but
we see you, so we know somebody's watching.
Just let us know that you're watching. We'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, until next time then, this is Trenton, and
I'm Brett.
Saying God bless. We'll see you then.